Imagine all the things you'd accomplish if you never procrastinated. Maybe you'd have learned that instrument by now, or would have written that novel, or would have that great beach body. If I never procrastinated, I would have been done this video 6 months ago when I first started it. And it all started with a simple question. Can I solve procrastination forever? And honestly, I thought it would be this straightforward thing. All I have to do is work out what's going on in the brain, stop that thing from happening, and then I wouldn't procrastinate anymore. But then when I actually asked a neuroscientist about it, he said this.
People think that you can turn on an MRI and see where something is happening in the brain. But the truth is that's not so. This stuff is vastly more complicated, so we have theories.
And at this moment, it became extremely obvious why it's such a hard thing to solve. Because we don't actually know what's going on in your brain when we procrastinate. All we have are theories. And these theories tell us what's probably happening based on what we know about how the brain works. So now I need to find a theory. And in search of a way to help me understand my problem, I asked a psychologist, Dr. Tim Pitchell, how he understands and deals with procrastination.
Procrastination is a mental thing.
And it turns out there's way more theories than I expected. But of all the reasons he suggested, the one that makes the most sense to me is this. There's one part of your brain that's purely instinctual, called the limbic system. It's responsible for your emotions, your fight or flight. All it cares about is keeping you alive. Then over here, there's this other part that's kind of wiser and more rational. It's responsible for your goals, your dreams, and your plans for the future. That's your prefrontal cortex. So what happens when you get that feeling of not wanting to do something? The theory is that your instinctual part springs into action right away. It doesn't think about the future, it just tells you to avoid the task. The other side, the rational side, is slower to act. It thinks things through, so you procrastinate until that part can remind you that you're not dying, you're just trying to do something that's really hard. And the paradox here about giving in to feel good is that it actually makes you feel terrible later. It's really frustrating because even though I know how it works, it's still really hard to stop doing. And with all these design flaws in the way that our brains function, I can't help but think that solving procrastination might just be a hopeless cause. Except for this one thing. This thing that everyone I talked to kept bringing up.
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity means that your brain can change. It's kind of like gooey plastic. And the more plastic your brain is, the easier it is to train it to do what you want, to make and break habits. So you can develop your brain, and the best way to do it is actually thousands of years old.
Really what we want to do is down-regulate the limbic system. And what we want to do is strengthen the response of the prefrontal cortex. And mindfulness meditation is a route to that.
The more you meditate, the better you become at making decisions, and the easier it is to keep on task when you know you have something important to do. That's because studies show that it actually shrinks that amygdala, that instinctual part of your brain, and it adds more gray matter to the part that helps you make decisions. And that's what we know works. But there's probably hundreds of theories on how to deal with procrastination based on the way you think it works in your brain. So can you solve procrastination? Sort of, but it's not really easy and it does take a lot of practice. The thing that I realized about procrastination was the one thing that I hoped that I wouldn't. That everyone deals with it, that there's no simple solution. You just have to decide what matters most to you and just do whatever it takes to get started.